Media fact-checker. NFL player Cam Skattebo's controversial denial of CTE and asthma legitimacy sparks backlash and apology. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Cam Skattebo, a 24-year-old New York Giants running back, dismissed chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, as an excuse and asthma as fake during a Bring the Juice podcast in 2025. CTE is a degenerative brain condition linked to repeated head trauma, marked by abnormal tau protein buildup and symptoms including cognitive decline, mood changes, and dementia, with definitive diagnosis only possible posthumously. A 2017 Boston University study found CTE in 110 of 111 former NFL players examined, and the NFL acknowledged a link between football and CTE in 2016. Skattebo's rookie season in 2025 with the Giants included 410 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns across 8 games before an ankle injury ended his season. Skattebo apologized on X, formerly Twitter, for his comments, stating they were a tasteless joke and not meant to downplay the seriousness of the conditions. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Skattebo called asthma fake too and said people should just breathe air, while Article 2 does not include the just breathe air quote. Article 1 mentions the Giants have not publicly commented on his remarks, but Article 2 does not address the team's response. Article 1 references a 2023 study finding CTE in roughly 92% of former NFL players, while Article 2 cites a 2017 study finding CTE in 110 of 111 players examined. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. St. George Illawarra Dragons forward Loko Pasifiki Tonga's neck injury and return timeline. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Loko Pasifiki Tonga was taken to hospital in an ambulance after a training incident on Thursday, the 20th of March, 2026, ABC, News Kamau, ABC. Pasifiki Tonga suffered a suspected neck injury during a tackle at Dragons training in Wollongong, ABC, News Kamau. He was conscious and communicating with medical staff at all times during hospital treatment, ABC, News Kamau. Pasifiki Tonga is a 20-year-old forward who played 10 NRL games in 2025, News Kamau, ABC. St. George Illawarra Dragons are scheduled to face Parramatta Eels in the NSW Cup on Sunday, the 23rd of March, 2026, ABC, News Kamau, ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC, first article, states Pasifiki Tonga was listed to play in Sunday's NSW Cup clash, but ABC, third article, does not mention this detail explicitly. News Kamau suggests Pasifiki Tonga might play this weekend with monitoring, while ABC, third article, states he is unlikely to play in the upcoming NSW Cup game and will reassess next week. ABC, first article, mentions the Broncos' 0-3 start history and recovery stories, which is unrelated to Pasifiki Tonga's injury and not covered by News Kamau. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australian cricketer Georgia Voll's record-breaking T20 century versus West Indies. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Georgia Volume 50 scored the third fastest T20 international century by an Australian woman in 52 balls during the final match of the T20 series against West Indies in St. Vincent. Australia won the T20 series sweep over West Indies with a 40-run victory via the DLS method after rain interrupted the West Indies chase at 61 thirds in 10 overs. Voll's innings included 6 sixes and aggressive play against spinners, finishing with 101 runs in the third T20 match. Volume 50 was dismissed by Hayley Matthews on the ball after scoring her century, 52 balls, by hitting Deandra Dottin to the deep third boundary. Sophie Molyneux scored 25 off 12 balls in her first series appearance after returning from back pain. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between sources. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. US military escalation against Iran and global allies' refusal to support. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Trump requested China deploy ships to the Strait of Hormuz to secure oil flow during Iran conflict. China declined the US request to intervene in the Strait of Hormuz. Germany's defense minister stated this is not our war regarding US-Iran conflict. France's President Emmanuel Macron declared France will never take part in operations to open or liberate the Strait of Hormuz in the current context. Italy, despite being Trump-friendly, also declined US requests for support in the Strait of Hormuz. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the two articles as they are nearly identical in content. This story was covered by Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Nicola Olyslagers wins silver in women's high jump at World Athletics Indoor Championships. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Nicola Olyslagers finished in a three-way silver medal share in the women's high jump at the 2024 World Indoor Championships in Torun, Poland. Yaroslava Mahuchik won gold with a clearance of 2.01 meters, defeating Olyslagers who cleared 1.99 meters. Olyslagers, Ukraine's world record holder and Olympic champion, had been beaten by Olyslagers at both the 2023 World Indoor and Outdoor Championships. Olyslagers, Yulia Levchenko, Ukraine, and Angelina Topic, Serbia, all cleared 1.99 meters and shared silver due to countback. All top four jumpers cleared 1.99 meters on their first attempt. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports Eleanor Patterson as a twice-a-silver medalist at the World Indoors, while ABC does not specify her medal count. The Guardian reports Hayley Kitching's 800m heat time as 2 minutes and 0.99 seconds, but ABC reports it as 2 minutes and 0.09 seconds. The Guardian mentions Olyslagers' quote about not feeling ready to compete and waking up, while ABC does not include this phrasing. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Donald Trump's perceived hubris and misjudgments in the US-led Iran conflict and global reactions. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump reportedly predicted the US-Israeli assault on Iran would be over in 4 days, according to Asli Aden Tasbas, Brookings Institution, and a credible expert. A classified National Intelligence Council report warned that a large-scale US assault on Iran would be unlikely to oust the Islamic Republic's military and clerical establishment. Iran launched thousands of missiles and drones at Arab neighbors in the Gulf and attacked Israel during the conflict. Trump acknowledged the risk of Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz but claimed Tehran would likely capitulate before doing so. Iran's navy was significantly larger than Trump expected, according to both articles. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the two sources as they are nearly identical in content and wording. This story was covered by Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Federal approval of 600+ new gas wells in Queensland's Surat Bowen basins until 2081. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The federal government approved up to 1,695 new gas wells in Queensland's Surat and Bowen basins, valid until 2081. The Australia Pacific LNG, APLNG, project involves 1,545 kilometers of pipelines and 3 processing facilities across the Surat and Bowen basins. APLNG is a joint venture between US firm ConocoPhillips, Australian company Origin Energy, and Chinese operator Sinopec. The project will produce gas for both domestic and export markets, with construction scheduled to begin in 2024. The approval includes 120+ environmental conditions covering threatened species, vegetation clearing, and water resource protections. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports the approval is valid until 2081, while The Guardian states the project will operate until 2061 with an extended approval period to meet environmental conditions. The Guardian claims the project's lifetime emissions, 120 million tonnes, exceed Australia's annual transport emissions, a claim not quantified in ABC. ABC highlights the project's economic benefits, jobs, tax payments, without mentioning emissions comparisons, while The Guardian emphasises climate contradictions. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Alana King's T20 World Cup selection bid amid Australia's West Indies series. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Alana King took 2 wickets, 2-25, in Australia's 17-run T20 win over West Indies on Sunday, AEDT, in St Vincent, helping Australia defend 5-164 and win by 17 runs. Australia holds a 2-0 series lead after winning the second T20 against West Indies in St Vincent, with 1 match remaining. King was named Player of the Match in Australia's 17-run T20 win over West Indies on Sunday, AEDT, in St Vincent. Georgia Voll took 1-16 from 3 overs in the same match against West Indies. Australia's T20 series against West Indies includes 2 more T20s, Saturday and Monday local time, followed by 3 ODIs in St Kitts. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports Australia's first innings total in the second T20 was 5-164, while Guardian reports 6-164. ABC states King took 2 wickets in the second T20 match, Sunday AEDT, while Guardian reports King took 3 wickets in the first T20 match, Saturday AEDT. ABC says Australia's final T20 is on Tuesday morning AEDT, while Guardian does not mention the exact time for the final T20. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Victorian public school teachers staging first strike in 13 years over pay and conditions. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Over 30,000 Victorian public school teachers, principals, and education support staff are participating in a 24-hour strike on March 24, 2025, the first such action since 2012. The Australian Education Union, AEU, rejected the state government's 17 to 18.5% pay offer, demanding a 35% pay rise over 4 years for teachers and improved working conditions. The Fair Work Commission approved the strike after 98% of AEU members voted in favour of industrial action. More than 500 schools in Victoria are operating on skeleton staff or are significantly disrupted due to the strike, with many unable to supervise all students. Premier Jacinta Allen and Education Minister Ben Carroll have urged teachers to abandon the strike, insisting schools will remain open with limited supervision for emergency workers' children. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian, Article 4, states Victorian licence plates carry the slogan "The Education State," but this detail is not mentioned in any other source. The Age, Article 2, reports principals are not yet pursuing industrial action but can join if AEU members, while ABC, Article 6, does not specify whether non-AEU principals are participating. The Age, Article 3, says the government's offer was made a week prior to the strike, while ABC, Article 6, states the 17% offer was rejected last week after over a year of negotiations. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, and The Age. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Kangaroo Island Council's proposed feral cat eradication policy and progress. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Kangaroo Island Council is considering a last cat policy to ban new pet cats from the island as part of a feral cat eradication effort. Mayor Michael Pengelly stated the goal is to rid Kangaroo Island of feral cats and not allow any more cats in by 2030. The Dudley Peninsula project has removed 2,800 feral cats, leaving around 150 remaining cats on the peninsula. Feral cats contribute to a $12 million annual decline in sheep production due to toxoplasmosis, according to Mayor Pengelly and Jack Goff. The federal government provided $1.61 million in December 2023 for the project, with the Invasive Species Council stating an additional $3.1 million is needed for full eradication. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the two sources. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australian economic fears over US-Iran conflict and domestic policy fallout. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Barry Cassidy and Tony Barry discuss the fuel crisis in Australia linked to geopolitical tensions. The Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, has raised the cash rate. Treasurer Jim Chalmers is described as opening the door for a potential recession. Liberal MP Andrew Hastie criticizes US President Trump's approach to Iran. The Albanese government faces public blame for economic fallout from US-Iran tensions. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Canadian woman and her autistic daughter detained by ICE in Texas after border checkpoint stop. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Tanya Warner, 47, originally from British Columbia, and her 7-year-old daughter Ayla are Canadian citizens detained by ICE since the 14th of March, 2025. The family was stopped at a Border Patrol checkpoint in Surat, Texas, on the 14th of March, 2025 while driving home from a baby shower in Raymondville, Texas. Tanya Warner presented her Texas driver's license, work visa, and actual visa to ICE agents at the checkpoint. Ayla was also taken for fingerprinting. Both mother and daughter were detained for fingerprinting and neither returned from the checkpoint. Tanya was initially held at Rio Grande Valley Central Processing Center in McAllen, Texas. Tanya Warner is married to Edward Warner, a U.S. citizen, and the family resides in Kingsville, Texas, about 120 miles from the Mexico border. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 says Tanya Warner and Ayla were moved to Dili Immigration Processing Center, but Article 2 does not mention this transfer and focuses solely on Rio Grande Valley Central. Article 1 describes Tanya Warner being handcuffed, including children, at the first facility and conditions at Dili, while Article 2 does not detail these specifics and only mentions Rio Grande Valley Central. Article 1 states Warner was held for about 5.5 hours at the checkpoint before being sent to the first facility, but Article 2 does not specify the duration of detention at the checkpoint. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Testing and reviewing the best chef's knives for home cooks. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Ben Lippitt tested 14 knives over a fortnight for The Guardian, focusing on tasks like dicing shallots, slicing tomatoes, and chopping herbs. The Wusthof Classic Chef Knife, 20 centimeters, was named the best overall chef's knife by Ben Lippitt in both articles. Victorinox Fibrox Chef's Knife, 20 centimeters, was selected as the best budget knife, priced at £43. Helen Simmons, a knife specialist, advised against using knives on stones, bones, frozen food, or hard surfaces like steel or glass. Ben Lippitt recommended avoiding dishwashers for knives, emphasizing hand cleaning and proper storage on magnetic racks or in boxes. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states the Wusthof Classic Chef Knife costs £137.11, while Article 2 does not provide a price but implies it is a high-end knife without specifying the exact cost. Article 1 explicitly mentions the Sabatier Cook's Knife, 25 centimeters, as the best workhorse Western-style knife, but Article 2 does not reference this specific model or category. Article 1 provides detailed blade length recommendations, e.g., 20 cm plus 4 larger hands, and specific knife sizes for different tasks, while Article 2 does not include these specifics. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Qantas Jetstar reduces NZ flights due to rising jet fuel prices amid global fuel crisis. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Jetstar is reducing 12% of flights between Auckland and Sydney, and Auckland and Brisbane from May due to rising jet fuel prices. Jetstar has contacted affected passengers, offering most same-day travel alternatives. Air New Zealand also reduced flights earlier this month, March 16 to May 3, citing unprecedented volatility in jet fuel prices due to the Middle East conflict. The Middle East conflict is cited as a primary driver of rising jet fuel prices in both articles. Vietnam Airlines plans to cancel 20-plus domestic flights weekly and suspend 7 domestic routes starting next month due to fuel shortages. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states Air New Zealand's reductions were earlier this month, March 16 to May 3, but Newscomau does not specify a timeline for Air NZ's cuts. Newscomau reports 55 flights cut from Auckland, Sydney, Queenstown routes, while ABC only mentions 12% of services on Auckland, Brisbane routes, no specific flight count. ABC highlights Vietnam Airlines plans to cancel 20-plus domestic flights weekly and suspend 7 routes, but Newscomau does not mention the 7 suspended routes. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australia faces fuel shortages amid global supply disruptions and government responses. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Energy Minister Chris Bowen announced 164 NSW service stations were out of diesel, ABC, Guardian 3. In Queensland, 55 stations had no diesel and 35 lacked regular unleaded petrol, ABC, Guardian 3. Victoria reported 162 stations missing at least one fuel type, ABC, Guardian 3. 6 fuel shipments to Australia were cancelled in April, with some replaced by alternate sources, Guardian 1, ABC. The federal government lowered diesel standards, flashpoint from 61.5 degrees Celsius to 60.5 degrees Celsius, for 6 months to boost supply, ABC, Guardian 3. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian 1 states Bowen declined to share statistics for WA, NT, SA, and Tasmania, while ABC and Guardian 3 provide specific numbers for these states. Guardian 1 reports 32 NSW stations lacked regular unleaded petrol, but ABC states 289 NSW stations were without at least one fuel type, including unleaded. Guardian 1 says Bowen did not share details on 6 cancelled shipments beyond an iterative process, while ABC states all expected shipments were received despite 6 cancellations. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. ABC staff strike over rejected pay and conditions agreement. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. More than 75% of ABC staff, 3,399 out of 500, voted on the enterprise agreement, with 60% voting no to the latest offer, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The rejected pay offer included a 3.5% pay rise in the first year and 3.25% in the second and third years, plus a one-off $1,000 bonus for ongoing and fixed-term staff, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The strike began at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesday, 24 hours from start to finish, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ABC's 2023 national audience reach was 65% of Australia's population across TV, radio, and online, Article 1. The last ABC staff strike occurred in 2006, causing major disruptions to TV and radio services, Articles 1, 3. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states the $1,000 bonus excluded casual staff, Article 1, but ABC News does not mention this exclusion, Articles 2, 4, 5. The Guardian reports the ABC's 2023 audience reach was 65% of Australia's population, Article 1, while other sources do not provide this specific figure. The Guardian highlights management's massive bonuses and refusal to rule out AI job replacements, Article 1, which ABC News does not address. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Hawaii faces severe flooding and dam failure risks during extreme rainfall events. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Over 4,000 people were ordered to evacuate in Waialua and Haliwa on Oahu's north shore due to flooding, Guardian, ABC. The 120-year-old Waihia Dam on Oahu is at risk of imminent failure and water was actively running over its spillway at 1,500 gallons per second, Guardian, ABC. Hawaii Governor Josh Green activated the Hawaii National Guard to respond to flooding, Guardian, ABC. Parts of Oahu received 8 to 12 inches, 20 to 30 centimeters, of rain in a short period, with Kala Peak receiving nearly 400 millimeters in one day, Guardian, ABC. A shelter at Waialua High and Intermediate School was evacuated due to flooding, displacing about 185 people and 50 pets, Guardian, ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian Article 1 states 5,500 people were under evacuation orders, while Guardian Article 2 and ABC report over 4,000 people were ordered to evacuate. Guardian Article 1 describes the evacuation order as 5,500 people north of Honolulu, while Guardian Article 2 specifies Waialua and Haliwa only, no mention of broader North Honolulu. Guardian Article 1 calls the evacuation order a warning for Lahaina, while ABC describes it as an advisory, not an order. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. 2 individuals arrested for attempting to enter UK's Farslane nuclear submarine base. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. 2 people, a 34-year-old Iranian man and a 31-year-old Romanian woman, were arrested on the 19th of March, 2026 after attempting to enter HM Naval Base Clyde, Farslane, Scotland, around 5 p.m. The base houses the UK's Trident nuclear submarines and is not open to the public. Police Scotland confirmed the arrests and stated inquiries were ongoing, with the pair due to appear in Dumbarton Sheriff Court, Guardian, or no further comment given, Royal Navy. The incident occurred on Thursday the 19th of March, 2026, with the man identified as Iranian and the woman's nationality reported as Romanian, Guardian ABC. The Royal Navy previously stated 2 people unsuccessfully tried to enter the base, Guardian. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states the woman's nationality is Romanian, while ABC only reports the man is Iranian and the woman's nationality is unknown. The Guardian mentions the incident is not considered particularly serious by the MOD, but ABC does not provide this assessment. The Guardian cites The Sun for the claim the pair acted suspiciously, but ABC does not reference this detail. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australia's fuel crisis driven by Iran war and Strait of Hormuz blockades. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Anthony Albanese called a second emergency national cabinet meeting to address the fuel crisis, with the next meeting scheduled for next week, ABC, Thij, Newscomau. As of mid-April, approximately 470 to 500 service stations across Australia are out of at least one type of fuel, ABC, 470, Thij, 474, Newscomau, 500. The Strait of Hormuz blockage, caused by the Iran conflict, disrupts about 20 to 25% of global oil supply, driving fuel shortages and price surges, ABC, 20%, Thij, 25%, Newscomau, 20%. Fuel prices in Australia have risen sharply, with the national average petrol price reaching 238.0 cents per litre, ABC News. The government has released about 6 days' worth of petrol and 5 days' worth of diesel from its emergency stockpile, ABC, Thij. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states 470 stations are out of fuel, while Thij reports 474 and Newskamau claims 500. Discrepancies in exact numbers, ABC versus Thij versus Newskamau. Thij suggests voluntary demand measures, e.g., WFH, are being actively discussed, while ABC frames them as not necessary yet and contingency, Thij versus ABC. ABC reports the government replaced 6 cancelled tankers and secured 3 additional ones, but Thij does not mention the 3 new tankers, ABC versus Thij. This story was covered by ABC News, news.com.au, and The Age. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Kyle Sandilands sues ARN Media over $100 million contract termination after on-air dispute with Jackie O. Henderson. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Kyle Sandilands filed legal action in the federal court against ARN Media on March 20, 2025, claiming his $100 million contract was invalid due to no serious misconduct or breach of contract. ARN Media terminated Sandilands' contract on March 13, 2025, following a 7-minute on-air argument with co-host Jackie O. Henderson on February 20, 2025, where he called her off with the fairies and criticized her work ethic. ARN Media also terminated Henderson's $100 million contract on March 3, 2025, after her legal representatives informed the company she could no longer work with Sandilands. Sandilands' contract with ARN included a $7.4 million base salary, a $120,000 annual flight allowance, $500,000 in advertising revenue for his products, and a $2 million annual sub-licensing fee to his company Quasar Media. The Kyle and Jackie O Show was the top-rated breakfast radio program in Sydney, with 630,000 daily listeners as of January-February 2025, according to 2026 radio ratings data. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 2, ABC, states Henderson denied she had ever quit the show, while Article 5, news.com.au, reports that her management and legal representatives informed ARN she could not work with Sandilands, implying she effectively resigned. Article 3, ABC, quotes employment lawyer Faye Calderone saying ARN took the right action in standing Sandilands down for creating a hazard, while Article 4, SMH, argues Sandilands' on-air behavior was congruent with the style, tone, and nature of the show and not a breach. Article 2, ABC, and Article 5, news.com.au, both describe Sandilands calling Henderson off with the fairies and criticizing her work ethic, but only Article 5 includes the detail that Henderson was reduced to tears during the argument. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, and Sydney Morning Herald. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australia warns Israel against occupying southern Lebanon amid escalating conflict with Hezbollah. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong called Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar on March 12 to 13 to warn against an Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon, stating Australia supports Lebanon's sovereignty. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz announced plans to create a security zone between the Israeli border, Blue Line, and the Litani River in southern Lebanon. Over 1,000 Lebanese civilians have been killed since Israel began striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including more than 100 children and 40 medics, Lebanon's health ministry figures. More than 1 million Lebanese civilians have been displaced due to the conflict in southern Lebanon. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong condemned Iranian weaponization of the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on global fuel prices. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC and Newskamau report that over 1,000 Lebanese civilians have died, but The Guardian does not specify the exact number beyond more than 1,000. ABC states that Lebanon's health ministry does not distinguish between civilian and combatant casualties, while Newscomau and Guardian do not clarify this distinction in their reporting. ABC reports that 2 Israeli soldiers and 1 civilian were killed in Lebanon, including one by misfired Israeli artillery, but Newscomau and Guardian do not mention the civilian death from misfired artillery. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Coronial inquest into Bradley Murdoch's death and his refusal to disclose Peter Falconio's remains. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Bradley Murdoch was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2005 for the murder of Peter Falconio and attempted kidnapping of Joanne Lees, with a non-parole period of 28 years. Murdoch died from stage 4 cancer, metastatic throat cancer, in Alice Springs Hospital's palliative care unit on July 16, 2025, 22 years into his sentence. Police made 2 attempts to persuade Murdoch to reveal Falconio's remains in the weeks before his death, one visit on June 25, 2025, at Alice Springs Correctional Center and another brief visit in palliative care. Murdoch refused to watch a video of Falconio's parents recorded with UK police's help during the June 25 visit and yelled at police to get out during the palliative care visit. A $500,000 reward remains active for information leading to Falconio's remains, which have never been found. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states Murdoch's cancer was diagnosed in November 2024 after a neck lump complaint, while The Guardian does not specify the exact diagnosis timeline. ABC highlights Murdoch's concerns about COVID vaccinations and staff turnover as contributing factors to his illness, which The Guardian does not mention. The Guardian describes Murdoch's final interaction with police as yelling "Get out" during a 30-second visit, while ABC does not specify the exact words used. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Dietary factors and the mind diet's role in preventing dementia and cognitive decline. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Mind Diet, Mediterranean diet intervention for neurodegenerative delay, is linked to a 19% reduced odds of developing mild cognitive impairment or dementia according to a 2019 study by Scientia professor Karin Arnsti, UNSW Aging Futures Institute. People adhering most strongly to the Mind Diet kept up to 20% more grey matter over 12 years, corresponding to a 2.5-year delay in brain aging, per a study analysing brain scans, cited in SMH and THEJ. The Lancet Commission's 2024 updated list of 14 modifiable risk factors for dementia includes high LDL cholesterol, 7% influence, and untreated vision loss, 2%, with other factors like hearing loss, 7%, depression, 3%, and low social contact, 5%. The Mind Diet emphasizes leafy greens, nuts, berries, olive oil, poultry, fish, and limits red meat, butter, cheese, fried foods, and sweets, described in ABC and SMH. The APOE4 gene variant, present in about 1 in 4 people, increases dementia risk and was linked to slower cognitive decline with higher unprocessed meat intake in a study, SMH and THEJ. But not all outlets told the same story. SMH and THEJ report that the APOE4 gene variant benefits from higher unprocessed meat intake for brain health, but ABC does not mention this genetic exception in its coverage. ABC notes that whole grains showed a weak association with brain health in the Framingham study, while SMH and THEJ do not discuss this discrepancy. SMH and THEJ cite a 2019 UNSW study showing 19% reduced odds of dementia with Mind Diet adherence, but ABC does not reference this specific percentage or study. This story was covered by ABC News, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Boating accident in Tasmania's northwest coast kills 1, 3 rescued after capsizing. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. 4 people, 3 adults, ages 27, 33, and a 6-year-old child left the Montague boat ramp west of Smithton at 5:30 p.m. on Saturday for a fishing trip. The boat capsized around 9 p.m. on Saturday, throwing all four into the water off Tasmania's far northwest coast near Robbins Island and Stony Point. 3 survivors, 27-year-old woman, 33-year-old man, and the 6-year-old child, were rescued about 1 p.m. on Sunday near Big Stony Island, 16 hours after the incident. The 3 rescued were wearing life jackets and suffered no injuries, though they were taken to Northwest Regional Hospital for observation. A man's body was found on Monday morning on the eastern side of Robbins Island. He was 35 years old and not wearing a life jacket at the time of death. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states the 35-year-old man had a life jacket but removed it, while Newscomau does not mention this detail. ABC describes the survivors as washed ashore near Robbins Island, but Newscomau says they were floating in the ocean. Article 1, ABC, and Article 3, ABC, both mention the Westpac rescue helicopter and marine vessels in the search, but only Article 3 explicitly names Tasmania Police's boat Van Diemen. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. ABC staff strike over pay and conditions, BBC replaces programming. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Over 2,000 ABC staff walked off the job for a 24-hour strike on Wednesday, the first in 20 years. ABC's flagship programs including Asterisk 7.30 with Sarah Ferguson Asterisk, TV, and Asterisk AM with Melissa Clark Asterisk, Radio, were cancelled or replaced due to the strike. The BBC World Service replaced ABC's TV news channel, Asterisk News Breakfast Asterisk, 7 p.m. bulletins, and Asterisk 7.30 Asterisk, during the strike. ABC radio stations, including Triple J, Radio National, and Local Mornings, aired pre-recorded shows, repeats, or music, e.g., Asterisk Waiting for a Star to Fall Asterisk by Boy Meets Girl, without presenters. The strike was triggered by a rejected 10% pay rise offer over 3 years, 3.5% in year 1, 3.25% in years 2 to 3, with 75% of staff voting and falling 395 votes short of acceptance. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Asterisk AM with Melissa Clark Asterisk aired on Wednesday before the strike but not on Thursday, while Article 2 implies it was cancelled entirely, no mention of Wednesday airing. Article 1 reports Marks claimed the 10% offer put staff ahead of inflation at 4.4% due to a $1,000 bonus, but Article 3 does not mention this specific figure or sweetener. Article 1 says the BBC replaced Asterisk ABC News Channel Asterisk programming, while Article 3 states the BBC replaced Asterisk all Asterisk radio news programs, Asterisk AM Asterisk to Asterisk PM Asterisk, which Article 1 does not clarify. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. NSW introduces laws to crush illegal high-speed e-bikes amid safety concerns and gambling reform delays. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. NSW government will introduce legislation to seize and crush e-bikes operating over 25 km per hour, with roadside dyno units for speed testing. Transport Minister John Graham stated if it behaves like a motorbike, it's probably illegal and could end up in the crusher. A 2-day safety blitz in NSW last week issued 170 fines for illegal e-bikes. Independent MP Kate Cheney plans to introduce a private member's bill for a gambling ad ban, marking 1,000 days since Peter Murphy's report. The eSafety Commissioner warned AI companion chatbots lack safeguards for children, including age verification and self-harm support. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports NSW's minimum e-bike age is undecided between 12 and 16, while Newscom Australia does not mention an age restriction for e-bikes. The Guardian states Victorian schools will remain open but with limited supervision, while Newscom Australia does not cover the Victorian teacher strike. The Guardian mentions fuel price support measures for truck drivers, but Newscom Australia does not reference this policy. This story was covered by The Guardian and news.com.au. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media fact checker. Donald Trump's Pearl Harbor joke during a White House meeting with Japan's PM Sonai Takeichi. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump joked about Japan's 1941 Pearl Harbor attack during a White House press conference on December 7, 2023, saying we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? The Japanese Prime Minister Sonai Takeichi visibly reacted with discomfort, shifting in her seat and widening her eyes during Trump's remarks. The Pearl Harbor attack killed 2,390 Americans and led to the US declaring war on Japan the next day, December 8, 1941. Trump's comments followed a question about why the US did not notify allies like Japan before striking Iran. Japan's constitution bans the use of force except for self-defense, limiting its military involvement in conflicts like Iran. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports Trump initially said Japan's help in the Strait of Hormuz was not needed, but later claimed Japan was stepping up to the plate, while SMH does not mention this shift in tone. The Guardian does not mention the $40 billion nuclear project or $33 billion gas investment announced by ABC and SMH. ABC states Trump praised Takeichi as very popular, powerful woman, but The Guardian and SMH do not include this specific phrasing. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and Sydney Morning Herald. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. U.S. Senate confirms Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin as DHS Secretary amid immigration enforcement debates. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Markwayne Mullin was confirmed as U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security by the Senate on Monday with a 54-45 vote, largely along party lines. Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, was the only Republican to vote against Mullin's confirmation, while John Fetterman, Democrat Pennsylvania, and Martin Heinrich, Democrat New Mexico, were the only Democrats to support him. Mullin's confirmation came after a Senate committee advanced his nomination on Thursday with 7 Republicans voting yes and Rand Paul voting no. Mullin previously served as a U.S. representative and was elected Oklahoma's junior senator in 2022. ICE and other immigration enforcement agencies remained operational during the February shutdown due to $40 billion in Republican-authorized funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, 2023. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Mullin's confirmation vote occurred on Monday, while Article 2 states the committee advanced his nomination on Thursday, with a full Senate vote expected in the coming days. Article 1 reports Mullin's confirmation vote happened the same day as the committee vote, but Article 2 separates the two events by a day. Article 1 mentions Mullin's predecessor, Kristi Noem, was fired by Trump for dissatisfaction with her personal appearances, while Article 2 does not mention this reason. This story was covered by The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. US-Iran escalation over Strait of Hormuz and energy infrastructure threats in Middle East war. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump gave Iran a 48-hour deadline, until 23:44 Greenwich Mean Time on March 25, to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz without threat, or face US strikes on Iran's power plants, per Newscomau, ABC, Guardian, X2, SMH, and Guardian, X2. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf stated that if Iran's power plants or infrastructure are targeted, vital infrastructure as well as energy and oil infrastructure across the entire region will be considered legitimate targets and will be irreversibly destroyed, per Newscomau, Guardian, X2, and SMH. Iran's military operational command Qatar Al-Anbiya warned that if the US attacks Iran's power plants, the Strait of Hormuz will be completely closed and will not reopen until Iran's destroyed power plants are rebuilt, per Newscomau, ABC, Guardian, X2, and SMH. Iran's representative to the International Maritime Organization, IMO, Ali Mousavi, said the Strait of Hormuz remains open to all shipping except vessels linked to Iran's enemies, US Israel, per Guardian, X2, and SMH. Iran launched missile attacks on southern Israeli cities Dimona and Orod on March 23, injuring approximately 200 people, including children, and damaging buildings, per Guardian, X2, SMH, and ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian, March 24, reported that Iran's missile strikes on Dimona and Orod were the first time Iranian missiles had penetrated Israel's air defense systems in the area, but ABC and SMH did not mention this as a first-time breach. The Guardian, March 24, stated that Iran said the attacks had been launched in response to a strike on its main nuclear enrichment facility at Natanz on Saturday, but Israel denied responsibility for the Natanz strike, and the Pentagon declined to comment, per Guardian, March 24. The Guardian, March 24, reported that British Cabinet Minister Steve Reed said one missile fell short while another missile was intercepted, but the Israeli military chief Eyal Zami said the missiles were not intended to strike Israel, per Guardian, March 24. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, and Sydney Morning Herald. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Arson attack on Jewish ambulances in London treated as anti-Semitic hate crime. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. 4 ambulances belonging to Hatzola Northwest, a Jewish community ambulance service, were set on fire in Golders Green, London, on Monday around 1:45 a.m. local time. The incident occurred near the Matchsike Hadath Synagogue on Highfield Road, Golders Green. Explosions were caused by oxygen cylinders on the ambulances, breaking windows in an adjacent block of flats. No injuries were reported, but nearby houses were evacuated as a precaution. Police are treating the incident as an anti-Semitic hate crime and counter-terrorism officers are leading the investigation. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 3, ABC, states police are investigating a claim of responsibility by a group with potential links to Iran, but this detail is not mentioned in any other source. News Kamau and ABC, Article 4, described the explosions as caused by gas canisters or oxygen tanks, while Shomrim, cited in Guardian, clarifies they were caused by oxygen tanks, no contradiction in substance, but ABC's phrasing is less specific. Article 3, ABC, notes the incident was not declared a terror attack, but Article 1, Guardian, and Article 6, Guardian, emphasize counter-terrorism officers are leading the investigation, no contradiction, but differing emphasis. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, and SBS News. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Australia's Matildas facing low-ranked teams in April 2026 FIFA series ahead of 2027 World Cup. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Matildas will play Malawi, ranked 153, in Nairobi on April 1, 2026, as part of the FIFA Series 2026. If victorious, Australia will face the winner of India, ranked 67, versus Kenya, ranked 134, in the next match. Australia is ranked 15th in the FIFA Women's Rankings, while Malawi, India, and Kenya are ranked 153, 67, and 134 respectively. Football Australia announced the April fixtures on April 1, 2026, just 17 days after the Matildas' 1-0 Asian Cup final loss to Japan. Coach Joe Montemurro stated the team needs more regular, top international competition ahead of the 2027 Women's World Cup. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian calls the April window a calamity and criticizes FA's decision-making, while ABC frames it as a necessary but limited opportunity. The Guardian suggests FA may have to call up fringe players like Kayla Morrison or Leah Davidson, but ABC does not mention this possibility. The Guardian implies the April games are unlikely to provide meaningful competitive value, while ABC states Malawi offers a worthwhile challenge. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis. Media Fact Checker. Homicide investigation and manslaughter charge in Perth's Banksia Grove over a woman's death. All source articles are linked in the description below. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A 42-year-old woman was found unresponsive at a home in Banksia Grove, Perth's northern suburbs, on Thursday morning around 9 a.m. The woman was declared dead at the scene by paramedics after being unresponsive. The incident occurred on Mayerley Bend, Banksia Grove. A man in his 40s was assisting police with inquiries, Article 1, and later charged, Article 2. Police received the initial report around 9 a.m. on Thursday. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states a man in his 40s is assisting police, while Article 2 specifies a 47-year-old man was arrested and charged. Article 1 does not mention charges or an arrest, while Article 2 reports a charge of manslaughter and an upcoming court appearance. This story was covered by ABC News. Subscribe to Media Fact Checker for daily Australian news analysis.